Thank you, Chair. Did Commissioner Khumalo have a... Okay, thank you. General, I would like to invite us to consider a different document now that we've concluded with Advocate Harrison's letter. And that is MK13 in file 2. And it starts at page 254.
Ms. Silla,
Yes, Commissioner.
you went through that letter with the general, the letter from the Minister Cele then,
Yes.
which has those tables and it lists areas of concern.
Indeed.
The significance of what you were discussing or of that letter is not clear as it relates to the terms of reference. Just so that it's not lost on us. It's one thing to read an interesting document, but what is sought to be conveyed in the evidence of the witness and how it speaks to anything that we are concerned with is not clear. Will you be dealing with that at some point?
No, I won't. I'm ready to address it now.
Okay, please.
To locate it in its proper context, the annexure that the general put up is annexure MK12, which is the letter from Advocate Harrison. It's Advocate Harrison's letter, which has got annexures to bolster the points she makes in her letter. And that is what caused us to go to these annexures, including the one that you referenced, written by Mr. Cele. So if you'll recall, Commissioner, Advocate Harrison in MK12 sets out the history and the issues that had been identified and the response to those challenges. So Minister Cele's letter technically captures the challenges as were communicated to the NPA. And thereafter, then we deal with the next document, which was the DPP's response in KwaZulu-Natal to those challenges, culminating in their participation in the task team to find a solution to the very challenges that were highlighted.
I understand its significance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just follow up? So it's all about the coordination.
It's all about the coordination
between the task team and the NPA.
Yes. And in fact, read in the context of Advocate Harrison's letter, it gives a perspective from the NPA standpoint as to the logic and justification for the very coordination you reference. Up until we dealt with Advocate Harrison, we considered that coordination from SAP's perspective, from the police perspective. And Advocate Harrison gives us the same view, but from the NPA's perspective. Thank you. So then, General, I'd invited us to go to annexure MK13, starts at page 254. Before we deal with the contents of this document, can you just identify for the record what it is?
Commissioners, this is a memorandum between the South African Police Service, KwaZulu-Natal, as well as the NPA in KwaZulu-Natal, with the intention to improve the working arrangements and the performance between the two entities or two departments.
If we turn then to page 257.
Before you do that, Ms. Silla.
Yes.
At page 255, General, it's where the very last line, it says NPA/SAPS KZN. What is POF, REOF, and DEOF?
Commissioners, the EOF stands for Efficiency Optimization Forum. The letters that are preceding those EOFs really refers to the area of operation. The P stands for province, the R stands for region, and the D stands for district.
Thank you, General.
General, I thought I was interrupting. Commissioner Baloyi, I would like to refer you to page 264 of that same document. 264, and that the list of the acronyms used in this document, and that includes the acronyms you referenced at page 255. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. General, I referred you to page 257 of that document, the signature page. Could you confirm the date of signature and who appended their signatures on that page?
The first signature on the page is the signature of the Director of Public Prosecution in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. At the time, she went by the same name Zungu, and she's now Harrison. So but it's the same person that signed that, and together with myself as the Provincial Commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal.
And when was this document signed?
This document was signed by both parties on the 26th of August, 2022.
There is a paragraph there preceding these signatures. It reads, the signatories hereof being duly authorized thereto, determine an issue hereby the official terms of reference for successful coordination of NPA and SAPS operations outcomes.
That's
Confirm
correct.
That.
That's correct.
I then would like you to, we work briefly through this document, and for this purpose, I would like you to turn to page 259. And just to read into the record item 1, this is under the heading Establishment and Responsibility of Efficiency Optimization Forums. This is item 1.
The established forums are to be known as KwaZulu-Natal NPA SAPS Efficiency Optimization and Oversight Forums for the consideration of NPA and SAPS performance. And
still on the same page, further down in the middle of the page, composition of the District Efficiency Optimization Forums, DEOF. That paragraph sets up the composition of the forums and highlights that the NPA under item F, the NPA will retain chairmanship of the forum. Is that correct?
That is correct.
My question is, that was as at the date of signature, which was, you said, in 2022.
That is correct.
Up until the attempt at disestablishment, was that situation prevailing? Was it still the NPA that retained the chairmanship?
The situation still prevailed up to that date and beyond.
And if we turn over, look at page 260, under the objectives of the forums, if you could read those objectives into the record.
The objectives of the forum are to A, ensure that all courts achieve the targets in terms of outcome 3, outputs, and operational objectives. B, monitor progress with regard to the achievement of joint targets. C, identify and address challenges encountered in meeting targets. D, identify and address specific crime types, modus operandi, crime trends in hotspots. E, optimize performance of the NPA and SAPS in the KZN province with the end result of the people of this province being and feel safe.
those objectives as were established in 2022, are they still applicable to the forums as we speak, whether or not legally the task team has been disestablished?
These objectives are still applicable to date, Commissioners.
And lastly, on this document, page 261, under the heading, Meeting of the District Efficiency Optimization Forums, I just want to highlight items 1 and 2, if you could read those.
The meetings of the forum shall take place monthly. If any urgent matter arises, the chairperson may convene a special meeting to discuss such a matter.
So it was anticipated at the time that the meeting will take place at least once a month, and could be more.
That's correct.
If the need arose. That's as far as I want to engage with this document, General. But before we move on, is there anything you want to highlight to the Commissioner regarding this particular document, this Memorandum of Understanding?
Commissioners, as you'll see on the signature on this document, as I had read on record, or indicated on record, as it's reflected on page 257, that is dated the 26th of August 2022. I had indicated yesterday that I was appointed as a provincial commissioner in the province of KwaZulu-Natal in April 2021. So, on top of the challenges that we experienced with regard to the workings of the task team, we also had challenges in general with regard to the cooperation between the police and prosecution in order to achieve the same objective in the province. That's why we felt it's important for us to have a formal structure of working between us and the NPA, which is not only applicable at the provincial level, which is not only focused on the task team work alone, but on the working arrangement from the local level to the regional level, as well as the provincial level, between the South African Police Service and the NPA. So this is what led into the development of this document using both legal teams of the SAPS as well as the prosecution. That allows us to have this better understanding and a good working relationship between the two of these departments in the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
Now, Commissioner Balo.
Yes. At that page 261, where you read item 1 and 2, item 10 states that minutes are to be forwarded monthly to the DPP, the SAPS Provincial Commissioner, and the Deputy Provincial Commissioner Crime Detection. Why was this considered necessary? What was the purpose of having that?
The Commissioner will notice that there is a district, there is a region, and there's a province EOF. So what is happening in the lower forums, whatever they're discussing in the lower forums, it is important for the higher structures to get to know, meaning they will have sat and engaged and deliberated on matters at the district level. Whatever the meetings that they've held and the discussions that they had amongst them, it must be elevated to the higher structure, which is myself and the DPP, because we have to monitor whether there is any compliance with the directive and this MOU that we've put together, so that when we meet in our forum, we take into consideration matters that already came from the bottom, and we can also intervene early enough if there are challenges in those structures at the bottom. That's why what you just read, Commissioner, is the lower level. When it says these minutes must be forwarded to the higher structures, you'll see the higher structures is reflected on the same document, the following page 262, the Provincial Optimal Forum. So that's where whatever minutes discussed on these two lower structures will end up in that forum. And that forum, it's the chairmanship will rotate between myself and the DPP as we are managing this process.
Thank you, Commissioner. General, that we've now dealt with the facts as they stood on the ground regarding the functioning of the task team, the coordination with the NPA, and basically the establishment of a formal structure to govern that relationship. Yesterday, we dealt with a number of reports that you stated the task team had filed. Are there any comments you want to make before we move to the next topic as regards all the information you have provided about the task team and its efficiency?
Commissioner, I think for me, as the head of the police in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, I felt it's important to demonstrate that my efforts starting from the day I became aware of the letter of the minister leading up to the 6th of July were all aimed at making sure that I protect these working arrangements of ours to administer justice to the communities out there. That when we try by all means to make the system work between the South African Police Service, the prosecution, the courts, and the correctional facilities, that entire value chain does not get disturbed. So we must understand the challenges in between, and we put measures in place to try and mitigate those challenges. But if you have another superpower structure coming from outside and want to disturb this process, or there are players within this system that are in cahoot with the people that are supposed to be our clients outside, that want to disrupt the working of this justice system, it is therefore important for us to do something about it. So that's basically what I was trying to communicate in all what we have discussed thus far with regard to the team's formation and how it's been working and what is the general arrangements, working arrangements between us as the police together with the NPA, the courts, and correctional facilities in the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
Thank you very much.
General, if we can just go back to page 186.
And for the record, if I may continue,
The letter, yes.
Okay, sir. You have heard them 59.
9. Are you there, General?
Yes, I'm there.
The last paragraph says a preliminary report has to be submitted to the minister by the 20th of January 2025. The final and closing report must be submitted to the Ministry Management Executive Committee meeting late January 2025, the date of which will be communicated as soon as possible. As far as you know, were those reports generated and submitted to the minister?
Commissioner, I would be lying if I say I know, because I never engaged with the minister on this. And I, as a person heading policing in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, where this task team is located, I was never asked to finish any report that is going to be directed to go to the minister. So perhaps maybe the project manager, which is Gerald Khumalo, might have been approached by the national commissioner. And if that happened, I don't know. However, I am aware that there's been meetings between the minister and the national commissioner and Gerald Khumalo regarding the same subject, which one of the meetings took place just after my parliamentary appearance, which took place on the 6th of March, I'm told. I was never invited to that meeting, so I wouldn't really know what they were discussing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Khumalo. We are now at technically page 50 of your statement, General, if we could turn to that. And we have dealt with up to and including paragraph 145. We turn to a new topic now, and it's the efforts to stop the disbandment. With regard to what you set out in paragraphs 146 to 150, can you make some comments? What steps you took?
Commissioners, as I have outlined here on what I've tried in terms of me trying to deal with, which I became aware of on the 2nd of January regarding the letter of the minister and the task team, and this up until the 6th of July. My efforts have been made to stop the eventual disbandment of the task team, which has a direct impact in how we administer justice in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, which will have a negative impact if it's not addressed. So I have indicated in the past, last week, yesterday, and previously this morning, that I had engaged the National Commissioner upon becoming aware of the existence of this letter, and the National Commissioner, who indicated that he was not aware about the directive, where the directive come from.
Sorry to interrupt you, General. Why don't you perhaps ask specific questions with regard to what you may want to direct the General's mind to? I'm thinking there was some detail on this yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to avoid a situation where we have a repetition.
Indeed,
For
Chair.
example, I contacted the National Commissioner, and then I asked the National Commissioner to make contact with right up to even the President. So I just want to avoid
Absolutely, Chair.
repetition of all that. I'm by no means suggesting that there aren't issues that you may be wanting to cover on this topic. That's why I'm suggesting that perhaps go to the specifics and ask questions that relate to the specifics.
I shall. Thank you, Chair. I do take the point. The question was really leading us to paragraph 151 in the context of his evidence from the afternoon yesterday and this morning, and the steps he took by engaging internally with the sub-internal structures. It then leads to paragraph 151 and a particular conclusion drawn in paragraph 151. Are you there, General?
Yes, I am, Commissioner.
Perhaps the best would be for you to read that paragraph into the record.
On the 27th of January 2025, during the Police Day celebrations, I was interviewed by the ENCA media who were present in these celebrations. During this interview, I mentioned that I believe that the minister issued the directive to disband the political killings task team because someone had whispered in the minister's ear that the team was investigating cases that might link his or her associates. The political killings task team should be disbanded. My conclusion in this regard was informed by the facts that objective evidence within the police structures militated against the dissolution of the task team. I concluded, therefore, that the decision was influenced by information other than that at the disposal of the police and serve the interest of those impacted by the ongoing investigations.
And perhaps I should ask you to read 152 and 153, because that will conclude this chapter.
In that interview, I also stated that there should not be someone from head office influencing the minister to destroy or attempt to halt investigations. In other words, the PKTT was now fighting criminal syndicates involved in the political killings on the other hand, and at the same time had to contend with forces within the state apparatus indirectly fighting the PKTT through the executive, the minister, and highly placed members of SAPS with the view to sabotage critical investigation. I was aware that after this interview, the target on my back had grown exponentially. However, I simply could not keep quiet and allow the minister to take his drastic action. At this stage, I did not yet know the person I mentioned in the interview, Mr. Brown Mkhwanazi, who it has since been confirmed by the minister himself is an associate of the minister, was linked to Mr. Matlala, who is a prominent cartel member currently under investigation in Gauteng and a direct target of the organized crime unit investigating, as assisted by the members of the task team as part of GCI Ops.
So if we understand you correctly, the point you make in those 3 paragraphs is that based on the information you have now shared with the Commission regarding the political task team, that the minister's decision to disband in the light of that, all that information, or the minister's decision is inconsistent with the weight and the value of the workings of the task team as you have shared with the commissioners. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We turn then to your briefing of the 6th of July. And we start that conversation from page 52. And that is under the heading Allegations Advanced Against Various Arms of Government, Functionaries and Other People. Do you see that?
Yep.
At paragraphs 154 to 158, you make some preliminary comments before you engage with the specific allegations. And I would like you to highlight those key comments, which, in my understanding, invite the Commission and the listeners to consider the allegations that you will now be addressing in a particular context. You don't have to read everything that is there, if you could just highlight.
On the 6th of July, I made these allegations of impropriety and criminality on the part of some against a person serving in the different arms of government and within the entire law enforcement. And that includes some members of business communities and perhaps some politicians. So these allegations I made after the careful consideration of the facts that were in my disposal. And those facts were supported by the investigations that were ongoing and the reports that were in those investigations, which then suggested that indeed there are some people that are involved in trying to frustrate the police work that will involve politicians, and evidence that shows police officers that are involved, as well as some people within the higher office of our justice system, which are in courts. That include prosecutors that are involved with these criminal syndicates operating in South Africa.
From page 56, you deal then with the allegations as they relate to politicians. And just to give us context, at 56, you break up politicians into 2 groups. The one is headed Parliament at page 56, and then at page 61, there's a subheading, the Executive. You confirm that?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so far as Parliament is concerned, you raise concerns regarding 2 members specifically in this.
That's correct.
You had stated that in your paragraph I think you had indicated that in respect of each category, you will highlight one instance or one person who falls under that particular category. But it should not be understood that the complaint is confined specifically to the one person. So when we deal with politicians, much as you highlight two here, your contention is that the problem spreads beyond the two and that there are actually more. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that the evidence of subsequent witnesses to follow will deal with the detail of the other persons per category. Is that the approach adopted?
That's correct.
With that in mind, then let's turn to page 56 under politicians and specifically Parliament. Please explain the contents of your paragraph 165. You explain how you intend to deal with this issue.
On this specific paragraph, Commissioners, I want to focus my address in part to the role that is played by Mr. Fadel Adams, who is a member of Parliament. And in briefly, I will also touch on the role played by Ms. Colin Barnett, who is a member of Democratic Alliance.
At 166, you summarize the concerns you have regarding Mr. Adams.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Can you read that into the record so we appreciate?
The main concern with Mr. Adams are mainly two. The first one is the unauthorized access to the intelligence information and his reckless use thereof. The second one is the abuse of his...
Apologies, General. At this stage, because there are specifics about individuals who, according to the General, are implicated, I think I should place it on record and make this public announcement.
Yes, Chair.
That because of time constraints, as I understand from
Indeed.
the evidence leaders, and on my understanding, the statements having been finalized the day before the hearings, it was not practical for implicated notices to go out timeously and before the hearing. But the evidence leaders have undertaken that notices will go out. Transcripts of the evidence relevant to each implicated person will also be sent out to the implicated persons. So in that sense, the implicated persons will not be prejudiced.
Indeed.
They will be able to have a look at the evidence that has been led, and indeed even the statements themselves will be shared with the witnesses for them to consider their positions and to address the implication insofar as it relates to each one of them as best they can. So they will be afforded a full opportunity as to how to address what implicates them. Am I recording the position correctly?
Absolutely correct, Chair, I confirm. And to point out that the provision of the rules, which require us to the extent that we are able to notify of implication before the witness is led. This is one of those rare instances when it was not possible. As the Chair will recall, the witness's statement was dated the 16th of September, which is the day before we started. They were prepared. The difficulty was the service in that short period of time. So they were struggling with service. Had we insisted on complying with that aspect, then we would have had to postpone the hearings. And we understood that was a factor.
That was a no-no.
Indeed. So it's in those circumstances that we found ourselves having to lead General Mkhwanazi without the notices having been received by the respective persons. And we do undertake, as the Chair correctly points out, to provide all the facts and material that support the implications that General Mkhwanazi advances to each specific person that is dealt with in General Mkhwanazi's statement, as soon as his testimony is done, Chair.
You may continue, General.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I was still reading the second concern that I have, the abuse of his seeming influence on the police structures at the highest echelon.
So you deal with the first part, with the first concern, which is unauthorized access to intelligence information and his reckless use thereof, from paragraphs 168 to 163. If you could just highlight to the commissioners what your concern is and why you contend that he had unauthorized access to intelligence information and that he dealt with such information in a reckless manner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Maybe before I continue this, I think it's important to remind the Commission and the public in general on my opening comment yesterday, which is on my statement, I think it's on page 6, where I indicated that as the police are investigating and we analyze information that is presented and evidence before us, a certain picture or a particular trend emerges. And that trend forces us to investigate further. So as we investigate further, we begin to see a certain trend that we pick up that is involved in that criminal investigation we're conducting. Once we see that picture, then in this case, the picture that we see that seems to undermine the administration of justice in the Republic, it is for that reason that we then are in this stage here before the Commission to try and explain the picture that we've been seeing, so that one doesn't wonder or question, why do we jump to that specific politician? It is due to this analysis and investigation that we are conducting that brings us to these individuals, so that we can flag and see for the Commission to assist us whether our conclusion is justified or not. But we are convinced that it is justified, that what we are presenting. So Mr. Adams appeared to have came into the position of an intelligence information. And this information is classified on its nature that Mr. Adams should not be in position of. So it is an information that is intended for another structure of parliament. If it comes to his position and as a lawmaker, as a person who is serving in parliament, he ought to know that when I'm in position of information from crime intelligence that is classified, it must be handed over to the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence so that it can be interrogated, regardless of the status of that information. So that is expectation that one has towards a lawmaker, such as Mr. Fazal Adams, who is currently serving in Parliament. Because this classified information we are referring to here, it's involving personal information of individuals that is deposited at crime intelligence or extracted by crime intelligence when the crime intelligence is conducting the vetting process for security clearance for individuals. It's a very sensitive information because it digs deeper to your personal information, your relatives, your criminal records, and everything that the state wants to test in order to confirm whether you qualify to be given a security clearance certificate or not. Such a clearance will then allow you to be in position of sensitive material. The same applies to the members of the Joint Standing Committee in Parliament. It is only those members of Joint Standing Committee in Parliament that are vetted, and their information is in the disposal of this intelligence structure. And once they pass that vetting, certificates are issued to them, and that is the entry for those politicians to become members of the Joint Standing Committee. It is not open for everyone. So Mr. Adam, unfortunately, does not serve in that Joint Standing Committee I do not know what is the reason that he's not part of the Joint Standing Committee. Perhaps that he might be able to answer himself. But in this regard, we know that he serves in the Portfolio Committee of Police, which is an oversight structure of government, and he's there as a public representative that holds us accountable on how we perform our function as a police on an open account of this that is allocated to the South African Police Service. But on the use of any funds on a secret account, the accounting role for that is within the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence as regulated by the National Strategic Act of Intelligence that regulates how matters of state secrets must be handled, including the budget, resources, and otherwise. So Mr. Adam is not part of it, but recklessly he handles intelligence information not only within Parliament, but he takes it out to the public.
Understanding your concern then, and you pointed out that he does not sit on the Intelligence Committee within Parliament.
May I ask this of you, Ms. Silo? To what term of reference does this testimony relate?
It relates to the second part of what he'll be dealing with, which speaks to the concern about, it's basically access to unauthorized information, and as a parliamentarian, dealing with that information in a manner inconsistent with the position he holds. But then it leads to the second aspect at 166.2, which is the use of that same information to abuse his seeming influence on the police structures at the highest echelons. That will then lead to, quote unquote, triggering a process through the Minister of Police to take certain steps that the general believes it's abuse of office and it interferes with the workings of the police. The chair will recall that when General Mkhwanazi started and explaining the various arms of government, of the police, he referenced crime intelligence, which though is located within the police, it is regulated in terms of the Intelligence Act. And it is the abuse he believes is perpetrated by some people.
Maybe let's leave it.
Okay.
Perhaps at some stage, whether it's when you make submissions
Indeed.
or after all the evidence has been laid, we will see how the strings will be pulled together.
I'm happy with that approach.
But I've raised the question.
Yes, it's noted. It's noted, Chair. My question to you, General, was how then would you suggest this specific parliamentarian ought to have dealt with that information?
Well, as a parliamentarian who is a lawmaker, it's a person that's supposed to know the law. The National Intelligence Act is the law that lawmakers must know and comply with. It would be expected that he knows that this information, it's an information that's supposed to be deposited to a different structure or an oversight body of Parliament, and so that it can be handled with sensitivity that it deserves. But unfortunately, he did not do that.
And from paragraph 173 onwards, you deal with how you say Mr. Adams actually dealt with that information. Can you take us through that?
Commissioners, as I'm outlining again here, I've said when I started, we investigate the picture image that calls for further investigation. So this commission is here to help us answer the question of how involved are the politicians and other private people, including police officers, how are they involved in interrupting the work of the security cluster in administering this criminal justice system. This is but one that you're going to see at the end, how Mr. Adams' action is impacting to the work that the team is doing. And again, posed to say this with respect, I had indicated that when we're discussing in length, we're talking about the political killings testing. We mentioned that Khumalo is the project manager there. Khumalo, who's a divisional commissioner of crime intelligence. We presented that Khumalo at crime intelligence becomes aware about what's happening in Gauteng province, and he registers a case internal within crime intelligence that is running as a project inside crime intelligence that is in charge of. It is that case that links to these high profile, the Mulifes, the Matlalas that get arrested. As we're going to see the picture late, it is an operation within crime intelligence, the GCI ops, not the PKTT. These actions that follows from there onward, how they're going to link to the work of that GCI ops. That's a picture we're going to show you towards the end, commissioners. So, but what we know here is that we're tracing steps back as when an incident happens. We go back and we ask, we investigate what led into this, going backward. So, although we are explaining it here where it started, but not how we investigated. We investigated by starting at the result of something, and we backtrack to establish, like a crime scene. We're going to come to court and say, so-and-so killed that person. But we start by attending the crime scene. We collect evidence, we track back everything until we find the reasons. Then we say, this is a suspect who conducted this crime. So this is exactly what we are doing now. We are telling you who did what, which eventually will result into the interruption of the criminal justice system, which this commission is assisting us to investigate. So, Mr. Adams, on the 29th of October in 2024, he went to Cape Town police station and he opened 3 cases. And these cases, I'm going to invite you, should be public record, to even look at what is contained on his complaint. It does not even warrant the registration of a case. There's no elements of crime on his complaint. But nonetheless, he opened the complaint. And the complaint is really about the vetting procedures within crime intelligence, a space that he ought not to play in. So he takes this sensitive information and he goes to the police station and he goes and opens a case at the police station, which therefore means he has access to the records within crime intelligence of the secret information that he should not be in possession of. But he takes that information, he goes to a police station, he opens the case about that. And this information, as I said, the vetting procedures of the South African Police Service, where the allegations that the police is manipulating systems within the vetting process. This is a person that, as I said, Commissioner, is not within the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence in Parliament. He's in an open committee. But he speaks, he opens a criminal case about the matters of crime intelligence. Mr. Adams further claims that there's an abuse of the secret fund account. He does not have an oversight. He doesn't even know the budget allocated because he's not part of the committee. But he claims here that there's an abuse of the secret fund account at crime intelligence. So his accusation, his claims, allegation is that this secret fund account, these funds are being channeled to places where they're not supposed to go, including the procurement of vehicles for a political task team in KwaZulu-Natal. We demonstrated yesterday about the budgetary expenditure and everything from the team, where it comes from. But he claims here that this money from the secret fund account is used to purchase vehicles of the political task team. Surely, as a complainant, you would provide proof for this. I like to believe that as a complainant, you should be able to demonstrate that here's an evidence that this money was spent here for this resource. He further claims on his complaint, commissioners, that this political task team is a private entity that provides service to the former Minister of Police, Bheki Cele. That's what he puts on the documents, on the A1 statement that he deposited at the police station. He accused that the team is basically an armed force of Gerald Cele. That's his accusation. And the other case that he opens, commissioners, is that he raises concern or is challenging the appointment of one Ms. Mukwele, who was appointed as a technical support service at the Crime Intelligence Division. So he claims that this appointment was irregular and it should not have happened. So these cases are registered on the 29th of October in Cape Town. 29 October 2024 in Cape Town. 2 days later, commissioners, on the 31st of October, Mr. Adams, he raised the same complaint and he lays the same charges, exactly identical, at Orlando Police Station in Johannesburg. 2 days later. 29 and 31, and these are records on our case files in the police we have. They can be obtained by the commission if you so wish. He complains that he raised these complaints to Gauteng, and they are registered on the 31st. 3 cases are registered in Orlando Police Station. 29, 31st. On the 1st of November, Mr. Adams sends an email directly to the Minister of Police, Mr. Senzo Mkhwanazi. He is complaining to the minister, and his complaint says that there are efforts to undermine investigation related to these cases, and therefore is requesting the minister to intervene. His email is attached as a reference that he sent to the Minister of Police.
General, if I may assist, that email you reference at paragraph 176 of your statement, and that is MK14, starting at page 265.
That's correct.
Thank you. You may proceed.
So these are the timelines that I'm putting before the commission. The 29 October, 3 cases in Cape Town. 2 days later, 31st of October, 3 cases, similar complaint in Orlando and Johannesburg, some 1,500 kilometers other part. A day later, a complaint to the minister that the 2 cases or the 2 provinces where he registered cases, there's some efforts to undermine investigations. So he's got evidence that there's an effort to undermine investigation on both of these provinces. That's why he then sends a complaint to the Minister of Police. So it is interesting indeed to know that this claim that Mr. Adams presented in Cape Town, he claims on his email that he knows that there was an interception of the investigation and the docket had been intercepted. So I really don't know what does that mean? That you register a case in one instance, Commissioner, a complaint is a statement is deposited at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The case is registered at 8 o'clock in the evening. But 2 days later, he claims an interception. Perhaps even by the time he claims, that docket has not even been allocated to the investigating office. But he is already moving to another province to complain about it. So this is what he puts in the complaint to the minister, that There's interception of the docket in Cape Town, and he further claimed that he had been notified that the Gauteng Police Department had followed the same modus operandi as the Western Cape Provincial Commission and is interfering in the investigation process. So this is one man, a member of parliament, that is convinced that within the period he's opened the case, there's an interference already. And he leaves the one province, he goes to another one, he opens a case, 24 hours later he reaches a complaint that they are following the same modus operandi as Cape Town. So how we concluded to this, I really don't know. Perhaps he will be invited here to come and explain why he reached this conclusion. But as we investigate, commissioners, you're going to pick up some linkages of his involvement in this work that the team are doing in uncovering the criminal syndicates within the police. So this is the build up to such. That's why we are focusing on this. This complaint upon landing at the minister's office, first he sends an email to the minister, and after that follows another emails to the chief of staff of the minister of police and other people that he copied the emails to. But the first one was directly to the minister of police. Subsequent to that, the minister's office directed this complaint to the office of the National Commission. This is a complaint that comes on the 1st of November. The National Commission directs the Minister's Office directs this to the National Commissioner's Office, and they request the National Commissioner to respond by the latest, the 4th, which is 3 days later. They must give a response into these allegations of Mr. Adams. The National Commissioner's Office acted on that complaint by directing a division in the police that is responsible for dealing with complaints, which is a division inspectorate. The report from the Divisional Commissioner, Lieutenant General Jacobs, is attached and marked MK15 in this regard. This General Jacobs and the team, upon receiving this complaint, they acted upon by trying to reach out to the complainant, Mr. Adams. They were not successful in trying to get him to come and elaborate on this complaint. And they read through the complaints and the dockets that he has registered at the 2 different provinces. They could not find anything that justified his complaint to say there was an interference with the investigation. And as a result, in their conclusion, General Jacobs, which is summarized in the report that is sent to the National Commissioner, of which the National Commissioner responded to the minister, was that the complaint of Mr. Adams was premature, and the police should be allowed to first investigate this matter, and upon the investigation, and maybe the further analysis can be done whether there is any interference or not. But the biggest problem on this is the fact that the complainant himself does not avail himself when he's contacted by the people who are now investigating his complaint. He does not avail himself to be engaged in order to form the basis of his complaint in this matter.
And if I may, General, for record purposes, the report of General Jacobs is an extra MK15 to General Mkhwanazi's statement, and that starts at page 270, Commissioners. Thank you.
Can I proceed?
No, he wanted to know if he may proceed. The commissioners were engaged, so we thought.
No, he may.
He may, okay.
Just engaging with Annex MK15. Yeah.
Okay. Before you turn to page 270, please, that's MK15. And please explain who you say the author is Lieutenant General Jacobs. Who is he? and just highlight the date of that report. Then you can deal with its conclusions.
The report from Gerald Jacobs is dated the 30th of July 2025.
And you say who is, what position does General Jacobs hold and in what body?
Commissioners, if you allow me to indicate on this, it's a report that comes out from Gerald Jacobs as we're interrogating on what he did back then, which then supports the response to the office of the minister, which eventually a response that the National Commissioner had provided to the office of the minister with regard to the fact that they were struggling to get hold of Mr. Adams, and they could not therefore finalize their report. In the same reference, because I want to answer this question of the date of the report. There is on page, in the same annexure, on page 285. Page 285, the commissioners are going to see that that is an information note that General Jacobs, I'll say that is a report, if I understand that General Jacobs sent via the office of the National Commissioner to the Minister of Police. And in this report, the person who signed is the acting divisional commissioner, who's Major General Dladla. And this acting divisional commissioner was acting in the position of Jacobs at the time. You'll see that one is dated the 4th of November, in line with the minister's timelines of dealing with the complaint. Remember, the complaint, Mr. Adams registered on the 1st of November. And the minister's office asked that the response be provided, the outcome of the investigation be provided to his office on the 4th of November. So this was complied with. The response was provided on the 4th of October, as it was signed by the acting divisional commissioner and confirmed by the acting national commissioner at the time on the 5th of November, which is General Sibia. And it landed in the minister's desk, and the minister endorsed his signature on this document on the 8th of November of the same month. So the date that I'm now talking about of the 30th of July, it's when Jacobs is finishing us with the information that explains what he did back then. So that's why I wanted to make sure that these two dates are not mixed up. The question is, who is General Jacobs? General Jacobs is a divisional commissioner of inspectorate in the South African Police Service. The South African Police Service, being an old department of government, back in the days, it was not the culture within government to have auditors. The culture of auditors is new. So an oversight entities that were available at the time within the police was the inspectorate that was doing an oversight, conducting compliance with policies and directives, standing orders within the police, and the failure thereof will come with consequences. So that's how the division was born. And of course, nowadays we then adopted the King's reports, the recommendations that introduce the audits, and that's why we even have an internal audit in the police that help us to audit the work we do in compliance with both the Act and policies and directives that are issued in the organization. But inspectorate remains within the structure of the police. So that is what General Jacobs is responsible for. So the complaints, when they come into the police, they get directed to the very same structure. So it's basically like in the terms of education, I will say it's a, I don't know whether the inspectors are still there in education, who goes around different schools and check the compliance. That's what inspectorate does. It's like a school principal that checks on everyone in the police. So that is basically the profile of General Jacobs. The good thing about this advantage we have is that General Jacobs was once a divisional commissioner at crime intelligence. So the complaints that talks about crime intelligence, he's in a better position to even understand what's going on. Besides the fact that he worked there, the inspectorate have access to all the departments, all the divisions in the police. So therefore, he had access to dockets, he has access to intelligence, although limited within crime intelligence in terms of secret fund account. But in general, he has access to many places within the police.
Can I find out, if I understand your testimony correctly, so the function of the inspectorate is to act on complaints received against the police and triggers an interrogation and investigation into the alleged conduct?
That is correct.
And subjects the police to scrutiny, the level of which I guess will be determined by the nature of the complaint?
That is correct.
And you pointed out that, and you state in your statement, that General Jacobs, in his report, indicates that he failed despite numerous attempts to engage with Mr. Adams.
That is correct.
Now, I want to tell you to page 280, please, and that is the end of the conclusion of General Jacobs' report. And to read item 8, which is the conclusion, his conclusion in regard to the complaint.
On his recommendations on this, you said 287. Am I right?
I was reading the report of the 30th of July, Annexure MK 15, that is the report from General Jacobs.
Yes.
You have it. It starts at 270.
Yes.
And I referred you to the conclusion that he draws under 8 at page 280.
Okay, the last paragraph on 280 reads, this office is of the considered view that the process followed to obtain, peruse, and hand over the 7 criminal dockets are above board and conducted without any malice.
Do you know whether there has been any further investigation by the inspectorate regarding the complaints of Mr. Adams beyond this report?
I am not aware of such. Commissioner, I want to, in order not to be confused on this Jacobs letter that we are talking about now, which is reflected from 273 and ending with the paragraph that I just read on 280, which is dated the 30th of July, 2025. As you can see, this one ends with Gerald Masimula as a recipient of this report. So this is a report that was recently done as the explanation that Gerald Jacobs was explaining to the National Commissioner with regard to the status of case dockets. So they might have been, I might have put them in the same bundle, but I think it's important for me to differentiate between the two.
Yes.
They're in the same annexure, but the one of Gerald Jacobs and that was investigating the complaint of Mr. Adams, it's the one that starts on number 285 in the same annexure. That one, 285, and it ends with the signature from Inspectorate at 287.
Yes.
Maybe if I may read those recommendations on record on 287.
So the one starting at 285 is the information note.
Yeah, this information note is actually the outcome of Jacob's investigation as expected by the minister was supposed to be submitted on the 4th.
Okay, and that is dated, for the record, the 4th of November, 2024.
Exactly.
Okay. Deal with
So the
it,
recommendations on that one, it reads, there are 3 of them. It says this office recommends that an extension of 10 working days is provided in order for the following to be considered, whereafter a comprehensive report can be provided.
Yes.
Number 1, interview the complainant and obtain a detailed affidavit. Number 2, perusal of all criminal dockets, including the Vilera case 38 of 8/2022. Determine if any other government department is investigating the same allegations. That is the recommendations from Gerald Jacobs. You'll notice, commissioners, that in paragraph 3.2 on the same letter at number 286, I'm going to read on record this paragraph, if I'm allowed.
Yes, please proceed.
An officer from Division Inspectorate who was in Cape Town on other official business made several attempts to conduct an interview with the complainant, but due to other commitments, the complainant had to cancel the proposed meetings. The complainant indicated that he could travel to Gauteng if required. That is part of what they are indicating as part of them causing the delay, hence they're asking for the extension of time, that they were not able to interview the complainant in this regard. So that is what Jacobs has done. Now, if I go back into what the SC is asking me in relation to the letter 273,
Yes.
up to the end of that letter. This letter is providing an explanation, commissioners, with regard to the incident that occurred as we are investigating, as I said, the issue of what has happened, and we are going backward. And we discover that the dockets open in Cape Town, and these dockets in Cape Town and in Johannesburg are then transferred or taken by inspectorate. So we wanted to establish how do inspectorate get hold of these dockets? And then inspectorate explained we got hold of these dockets because of the complaint from Mr. Adams. That's why we are going backward, because we started with what is a complaint, the dockets, where do they come from? They come from here. Let's go and check these dockets. We found in those stations the dockets are not there. Where are they? They are taken by inspectorate. So we gone to inspectorate. Inspectorate, what's happening with this docket? And inspectorate then explains that, no, we got hold of these dockets because we're investigating a complaint. And what thereafter happened to this complaint that we're investigating? What happened to these dockets? And then you're going to see another department coming in that while we're in possession of these dockets, investigating the complaint of Mr. Adams, then suddenly IDEC, which is an independent body within the NPA, newly established, comes to inspectorate to demand the dockets. So this report was explaining that although they took the dockets because of this complaint, but the dockets were eventually taken by IDEC from them. So these dockets ended up with IDEC. But we're going to explain the issue as the SC is trying to lead in terms of putting an evidence of how the sequence of these things has been happening as the picture emerges of answering the question of interference of politicians in the work that we are doing as a police.
Thank you. General, that then would lead you, because you have introduced it already, to paragraph 180 of your statement at page 59.
Yes.
Are you there? and you deal with these issues up to paragraph 185. Once again, if you could just summarize what the complaint is. And this concerns the minister's office in relation to the complaint as leveled by Mr. Adams.
Commissioners, we are aware that the National Commissioner, through Jared Jacobs, through the Office of the National Commissioner, had responded on the complaint of Mr. Adams and requested those 10 days, of which the minister has acknowledgement of that, although he doesn't comment, and that he does on the 8th of November. On the 11th of November, the minister's office, chief of staff, specifically Mr. Nkabinde, directed a letter which he signed personally. He directed a letter to IDEC, which is an independent directorate against corruption. And it directs this letter to IDEC in respect of the case dockets that were both open in Cape Town and in Orlando. The copy of the letter is attached and on this statement and marked MK16. This letter, commissioners will read, and you can see all the case numbers are listed and signed by the Chief of Staff, Mthokozisi Nkabinde, dated the 11th of November, 2024. This letter claims that the Minister's Office is submitting this and requesting in terms of Section 27 of the NPA Act 32 of 1998. They are alleging that this matter is of a serious nature that involves corruption of the police, and therefore they are inviting IDEC. They are approaching IDEC in terms of Section 27 to investigate these cases. It is unclear why the Chief of Staff decided or elected to act on his behalf. He signs it himself, although using the letterhead of the minister, but he's a Chief of Staff. Despite the fact that the minister had acknowledged the report from Inspectorate. Despite the fact that on the 8th, the minister acknowledged the report from the Inspectorate about the same complaint, but the Chief of Staff personally signs this letter and he invites IDEC to conduct investigation in terms of Section 27 complaint.
General, apologies, just so we don't lose each other. MK16, which is the letter from the Minister's Office signed by the Chief of Staff to IDEC, is dated the 11th of November 2024.
Yes.
And your issue is that that letter is dispatched, notwithstanding the report provided by the Inspectorate to the Minister.
That's correct.
And that report is the one you pointed out to, dated the 4th of November, wherein the Office of General Jacobs sought an extension to investigate.
That's correct.
Okay. And that was dated the 4th of November. So technically, the Inspectorate has not reported back to the Minister as to the outcome of its investigations regarding this complaint. Thank you.
The 10 days is not even up at that stage.
It's not over. 10 days is not over. I must indicate, commissioners, that documents ordinarily that comes to the minister, they go via the Chief of Staff. So the Chief of Staff had, in that document we referred to earlier, from the National Commissioner to the Minister, which is authored by Inspectorate, dated the 4th, the National Commissioners acting signs on the 5th, and the minister acknowledged that in the minister's office, they've acknowledged it on the 5th, on the same day the National Commissioner signed it, or the acting Jairus Beer, on the 5th, they acknowledged that letter on the stamp that is placed on 285 on top right corner there, as an indication that the minister's office receives it on the 5th. Although the minister then, after reading it, he then signs it on the 8th. So the letter is authored the 4th, National Commission signs on the 5th, the minister's office received on the 5th, the minister himself acknowledged, signs this document on the 8th. So the request of 10 days has not lapsed, because 2 days later, the 11th, we then see the chief of staff writes a letter to IDEC. So he's basically asking IDEC to take this docket. I must maybe indicate again, commissioners, while we are still on this point, that the complaint of Mr. Adams that was sent to the minister, I said earlier that Mr. Adams sent an email a day after opening a case. He sent an email directly to the minister, and subsequent to that, other emails were then sent to the chief of staff. I would invite the commissioners to look at Annexure 14.
Page 265.
These are emails, reference of emails that Mr. Adams forwarded to the office of the Minister of Police.
Apologies. You are correct. It starts at page 265. The actual email is at 266. Is that the email you are looking for?
And on top of that, now this is emails from Mr. Adams. As you can see, I'll just read one of them. The very first one on 266. It is from Sakiana Frenchman, Parliament, and is dated the 1st of November at 8:25 in the morning, 2024. It's addressed to Nkabinde CM at acps.gov.za. That is the chief of staff of the minister. And there are many other emails. And I want to move forward to invite the commission to look at the same reference on 283.
That's part of Annexure MK15.
Yes.
Yes.
283.
Yes, and it's a series of emails as well.
Yeah, those are the trailing emails. The one on top, which I want to indicate to the commissioners that Mr. Nkabinde, who is the chief of staff, you'll remember that what I showed you earlier was the email that came from Mr. Adams' office dated the 1st of November around 8 in the morning.
Yes.
At 9:04, the same morning, the chief of staff, on the same date, the chief of staff sent this complaint directly to the office of the National Commissioner. The recipients, the Sibula FM Major General and Letogo GH Brigadier, they are both administrators at the office of the National Commissioner. So this just to show the sequence that the chief of staff received it within an hour on the receipt of the email. He already directed this complaint to the office of the National Commissioner.
I'm looking, sorry to interrupt you, General. I'm looking at the email of 8:25 on the 1st of November, 2024. It says in paragraph 2, I was told that the dockets were intercepted. This comes after the dockets have been itemized. And then it refers to another set of dockets. And then it says that the same modus operandi was followed. I'm just trying to place myself, in the place of the recipient of this email. I would have gone back to the sender and said, what on earth are you talking about? To just say, I have learned that the dockets have been intercepted, and then you refer to another set of dockets and you say the same thing was done. What exactly was the interception? By whom? At what point? And when you say the same was done, what exactly is the same? I would, if I was the recipient, I would have gone back to the sender and said, what on earth are you talking about? And asked for some specificity instead of then forwarding this to someone else to respond or to make a follow-up. Looking at this, I'm totally lost as to what Mr. Adams was talking about, or MP Adams was talking about. Do you want to comment on that?
Exactly, Commissioners. It is part of what we uncover as we investigate. All these strange things that are happening, that takes us to us reaching the conclusion that is part of a bigger plan of things. So these are puzzles that we are trying to put together as we're investigating. Because on the same page, Commissioner 283, you have both emails that are reflected there. The one at the bottom comes from Mr. Adams, and look specifically at the time. It is 8:21:01 in the morning of the 1st of November 2024. It is directed specifically to the minister himself, not to Nkabinde, this one. The one I referred to earlier was directed to Nkabinde. This one is strictly to Edward Senzo Mchunu, his email address, the minister directly. I said earlier there were other emails that followed thereafter to Nkabinde, but this one was specific. It went straight to the minister at 8:21 in the morning. On the same date, on the 1st of November, a couple of minutes later, less than an hour, the chief of staff at 9:04 in the morning, the chief of staff forwarded this complaint to the National Commissioner's office. So I would have expected the very same minister to ask those questions, Commissioner. And because the logic tells you, you open a case the day before and you're complaining today in the morning. So it means overnight there was an interception in your conclusion. I don't think it's a fair process, conclusion that Mr. Adams will have reached. But nonetheless, the minister did not ask Mr. Adams a question, neither the chief of staff. But what's interesting here, Commissioners, is that this email from the chief of staff to the National Commissioner's office reads, and I want to quote it on record. Good morning, Major General Sebola. As I said, Sebola is at the office of the National Commission. But the chief of staff says, the ministry has received this complaint from the member of parliament. In order for the ministry to respond accordingly, please finish this office with a report in responding to this complaint and the details of the investigating officer who was assigned to investigate these cases. Your report is expected on Monday, the 4th of November at 1500 hours. So this is the timelines that are given by the chief of staff who says the ministry. I'd like to believe perhaps the chief of staff will have received directive from his boss, which is a minister in this regard. But then we come back into what we're talking about, then becomes strange that after the 4th of November, timeline has been met by inspectorate, although the minister received it on the 5th. The very same chief of staff then writes a letter under the minister's signature, a heading ministry, cover letter, and he sends this thing to IDEC.
Now, you referenced the report from the inspectorate dated the 4th of November. And we understand from that report that a request for an extension was, there was a request for an extension, correct?
That's correct.
And then you say the chief of staff directed a request for investigation to IDEC on the 8th of November.
The 11th.
On the 11th of November, I
11th.
apologize. If I could refer you to Annexure MK15, it's part of that pack. I see there at page 289 a further report, and this is dated the 20th of November 2024. It's signed by General Jacobs PA on his behalf. Do you see that?
Yes, commissioners.
I would like you to, it would appear that this report is in response to the complaint originally received, specifically regarding the Cape Town files and the Orlando files. That's captured at 2.1.1 and 2.1.2. And 2.2, they deal with the inspector deals with the instruction received from the National Commissioner. I would like you to have regard and read into the record the conclusion drawn at 2.2.1.
The 2.2.1 of the information note
Yes.
that is annexed on 289.
That's correct.
2.2.1, you said?
2.2.1.
Yeah, a report was compiled wherein the allegations that there was interference from both the provincial offices were reported to be unfounded.
And this was in relation to the question the chairperson posed to you about what interference was being referenced. And am I reading the document correctly that General Jacobs, by the 20th of November, had concluded that the allegation of interference was unfounded?
That's correct.
Now, just to close on that, if I refer you to, in the same document, to page 290, it's item 3.3, if you could read that into the...
As part of the protocols to address service complaints, an affidavit is obtained from the complainant. Colonel Phillips of this office was tasked to obtain the affidavit. However, after numerous attempts, it seems as if the complainant is evading the request. Please find Colonel Phillips' affidavit as proof hereof.
Now, am I correct in understanding that the conclusion is in part based on the fact that the inspectorate could not obtain an affidavit as required from the complainant to substantiate the claim?
That is correct.
At paragraph 180, you have dealt with this letter already, that the Chief of Staff refers the same complaint to IDEC. Do you know the status of that complaint within IDEC as we speak?
I'm not privy to the status of the complaint since the dockets were taken to IDEC.
Okay.
They operate outside the police.
And there, as far as you know, there have been no engagements. Do you know whether or not there have been any engagements with the police from the affected police stations, which is Cape Town and Orlando, in respect of these case numbers?
What I am privy to, commissioners, is that Gerald Jacobs' office, after receiving this docket as part of the investigation, they were approached by IDEC requesting that they hand over those case dockets of Gauteng in the main, and Gerald Jacobs refused to hand over the dockets. And they then, IDEC wrote to a head of crime detection in the police, it is Lieutenant General Sentumul. They wrote to her requesting the dockets. And she then contacted Gerald Jacobs and asked Gerald Jacobs to release the dockets to IDEC. Now, IDEC is led by an individual, and it is an entity of the NPA as a prosecution. The inspectorate, the detective services is led by individuals, which is part of the South African Police Service as a department which is led by the National Commission. But the correspondence from the NPA to the police does not include the people in charge of the two entities. It includes the head of IDEC and the head of investigation. So the correspondence between the two and the authority is granted by the police detectives and instructing inspectorate to release the docket, and then dockets were then taken by IDEC. To date, those dockets are sitting with IDEC.
I see in your
I'm just surprised that there would have been this much effort, this much laborious activity, all of it stemming from a non-complaint by Adams MP. I mean, with that one-liner in respect of the one category of dockets, and then another one-liner in respect of the second category of dockets, and then there's this much activity and effort. In fact, it just does not make sense that the Inspectorate of Subs should have been required to even give a report. Of course, I'm just expressing a view based purely on the fact that what initiated all of this was a non-complaint. It's totally not substantiated. So what the Chief of Staff, or what he refers to as the ministry, what they should have done was to go back to Adams MP and ask for specificity before all of this laborious activity was then engaged in. Do you want to comment on that, General?
Commissioner, my comment might be to some degree perhaps being biased, because I'm the one that is combing through all what is happening. Perhaps I must indicate to the Commissioner that what led us to able to comb through all these what has transpired is in two phases. One is information I get through my sources within IDEC that there is activities that are happening with IDEC that are not in line with what the purpose of the formation of the entity is. And that there are two structures within IDEC. There's a good structure that deals with the Zondo Commission, and there's another structure that is malicious, that is used as a weapon to further disrupt the criminal justice system operations. So I get that through my sources within IDEC. That's on one. That's how I was able to get this letter. It's not a letter that was given to me on request from the Chief of Staff. No, I got it through the sources. And the Chief of Staff cannot deny it, or the Minister cannot deny it, because got his signature is a legitimate letter. IDEC has that because they call for the docket informed by this letter, so they can't deny the letter. It's a picture that we started picking up. That is on one side through the information. But secondly, Commissioner, when we see the disruption of the investigation of the Gauteng counterintelligence operations, we then begin to ask ourselves why this is happening. What is talked about in the media that is not known is the arrest of Gerald Khumalo. So we have this arrest. When this arrest happens, it literally means this project must stop. This investigation of this organized crime must stop immediately because the people are arrested. We start investigating out.
I hope I've not muted. I hope I've not muted.
No,
you,
no, you
General.
didn't.
Just, can we still hear the General, all of us?
Yeah, I can
Even
hear
at
you.
the back there. Okay. Before you continue, General, I just want to say that, of course, it's early days. And my comment about a non-complaint should not be taken as final. I do not know whether the Chief of Staff of the Minister will be called as a witness, nor do I know whether Adams MP will be called as a witness. Maybe the MP will be able to explain why his complaint was indeed a complaint. And also the Chief of Staff may be able to explain why he considered what I've referred to as a non-complaint to be a complaint. So it is early days, but as presently advised, I just see it as a non-complaint. So until and unless it does get explained, to me it looks like a non-complaint at this stage. My co-commissioner wants to say something.
Sure. Thank you. Ms. Silla, maybe I should have asked this some steps back.
Yes.
Just to clarify my confusion. The complaint we are talking about, I just want to make sure we're not speaking at cross purposes. There is a complaint by, as I understand it, there's a complaint by MP Adams, which is about dockets being intercepted.
Yes.
But there's also the substantive complaint, the allegations that he's making about the use of the funds of the task team, about the employment, nepotism, and right? So there are those two different things. So were we speaking?
Except if I may make a correction, I don't. It's no. Maybe I may not interject.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep in mind, it's me seeking
Yes,
to be
I
sure
appreciate that.
we're having the same conversation when
Yes.
we say that complaint. Which complaint are we all agreed or clear? Which complaint we're talking about?
Indeed.
So this letter from the Chief of Staff, it lists case numbers, right?
Yes.
This is what is referred to. It says in paragraph 2, the allegations contained therein implicate very senior members of the South African Police Service and are viewed in a serious light. And case dockets were registered as per the following case numbers, and it gives case numbers. Now, it is, as I understand it, after those case numbers, in fact, as it reads, after those case numbers, it says, due to the nature of the allegations made by Honorable Fadil Adams, which is deemed to be quite sensitive and which contains allegations of criminal conduct, misconduct, this office requests the ID, the investigating director, to consider investigating the same. Now, my reading of this, it seems, is what is being referred to IDEC is what is contained in those case numbers, not the lifting, not the interception of dockets. I don't know if you understand the distinction
I understand.
I'm drawing.
I fully understand.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear that when we say that complaint, what happened to that complaint? Which complaint are we talking about?
Okay.
Thank you.
Perhaps I'll try, based on what the General explained. And perhaps the logical place to start is with the letter of the Chief of Staff, because that letter at page 310.
Perhaps because it's what, maybe a minute or even half a minute.
Okay. It's going to take more than a minute.
Lunchtime. It is actually 1 o'clock now. Perhaps let's take the lunch adjournment now, resume at 2 o'clock, and then you may respond to my co-commissioner.
Can I suggest, Ms. Silla, what you may want to do during the...
Please, not yet, please.
May I suggest, Ms. Silo, that perhaps during the break, you may want to look at this and get the witness to clarify his evidence on this issue.
We are ready to clarify. I had understood the witness to clarify, and I intend to deal with it with reference to the documents.
Thank
Yes,
you. Thank you, Chair.
So do you want to get someone to Advocate Silo, for my benefit,
Yes.
the evidence we have heard for the last hour, how do we link it to the interference of the GCI ops? Because it seems to me that there's a complaint by an MP.
GCI ops.
Yes, it may or may not have merit, but I heard the general said it showed a pattern leading up to, and that's what I wanted clarity
Well,
on.
we will address it because I think the general, there's a comment he made before he stated that, which is that perhaps he's rushing ahead of himself.
Yes.
So, but we will park it and address both the issues at 2 o'clock when we
So that you
reconvene.
have time to consider
Yes.
it.
No, we will.
May we now adjourn?